The Seattle Association of Black Journalists presents the Morning Update Show 1 year anniversary special this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. Join the Converge Media family as we broadcast live from the State Hotel in downtown Seattle, and we take a look back at the last 12 months of the Morning Update Show and a glance towards the future. This is a night you won't want to miss and definitely won't forget, as we're also joined by Julia Jesse, Besa Gordon, Marcus Harrison Green, Jake Gravgrot, Be Unique, Dre's, Eric Calligraphy, Bobby Steele, Mike Davis, Carlos Imani, Willard Jimerson, G. Prez Aspie, DJ Topspin, and more. Woo! So save the date this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. across all Converge media platforms.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy anniversary Friday. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I am your co-host, Trey Holiday. And you guys know we are pumped today. All the energy's up in the building. What's up, Oh? Happy anniversary Friday.
Yeah. Wow. One year ago today, imagine 1 year ago today, we launched the Morning Update Show with the intentions of informing our community about what was going on with COVID, and to give them the best information and steer them away from a lot of the misinformation. This was a show that we intended to only be on air for maybe 2 or 3 months, because at the time they were like, this COVID thing is going to blow through, which clearly we find out that it has not.
Right.
And we're still dealing with it. But, never intended to be on air this long. And really, I never intended to be on screen at all. Different than my colleague Trey Holiday here. This show was actually created. We just kind of kickstarted it, but never intended to be here in front of the camera 12 months later. My whole thought was, okay, we'll get it going, find some hosts, and then sit in the background and and produce. But we're still here.
I know, absolutely we are. And honestly, I think the audience appreciates that you're on camera. Oh, I've told you that before. So, I think it's a great thing that we have developed such a great product, honestly. And we always say to our team here, hey, we've seen it all at this point. So, it's really a testament to the dedication.
I appreciate the compliment. But I tell Dave Ross from Cairo FM, there's one thing me and him got in common. We both got a face for radio. So you have a face for TV. I have a face for radio. But good morning. I want to welcome everybody to the Morning Update Show. Remind you, this is a great time right now to tag and share the stream. Tag and share the stream with someone that you know that could appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating right here from the Emerald City. We got a short show today. So you can imagine we're getting ready for tonight's festivities at 7 p.m., broadcasting live from the State Hotel in downtown Seattle. Got a pretty great lineup. It's memory lane. We collected a lot of memories over the last 12 months.
I know. I'm so looking forward to it. Sometimes it's like when you see some of the old clips, it really showcases how we've grown. That's what I'm talking about. Just one foot in front of the other, man. So I'm really looking forward to it. And shout out to all of those who actually have been guests on the show. Come here, shared your stories, shared your resources. In the beginning, that's what it was all about. And I'm glad that we're going to be able to go over some of those moments tonight.
All right. I'm putting a link into the comments here, and I will, let's see how I can bring this up. Doing a lot over here. This was from Capitol Hill Seattle blog, capitolhillseattle.com. Happy birthday, Morning Update Show. Written by Justin Carter himself. You guys know Justin's been a guest and a guest host here. Almost everywhere we've been. He was guest host in the bunker. He's a guest host over here. Plenty of times he's joined us over video link. And so right there at Capitol Hill Seattle blog this morning, happy birthday, Morning Update Show.
Oh, our guy, Justin. Seriously, one of our extended family members. Seriously, Justin has come through time and time again. Thank you for that coverage, Justin. We appreciate that.
Yeah, speaking of Justin, we got a clip from him here. We'll play here in a little bit. But we also got an in-studio guest today. We got Derrick Wheeler-Smith, who's the director of King County Public Health's Zero Youth Detention Program. And actually, we're going to play, it's Feel Good Friday, but I mean, the news is still the news. We've got the latest clip here with an update from the shooting, the murder that happened in South Seattle the other day at the Emerald Bible Church. So we're going to play that, and then we'll discuss it on the other side. We'll discuss something with Derrick.
Yes, to be very clear, Pastor Harvey Drake says that his church was not targeted in this incident. However, he is taking this time to emphasize that what happened will not affect the very important community work his church is doing.
This church has not been targeted. In fact, we have never had an incident here ever.
Emerald City Bible Fellowship has served the Rainier Valley community since the mid-90s. Lead pastor Harvey Drake says over the decades, they've done a lot of good work.
We built an apartment complex next door, 61 units. We have a fitness center, 1,800 members. We have a CrossFit center. We have been involved in educational efforts for 30 years, summer schools, etc. And then we support groups who do things that we can't do.
So when he got the news of the shooting, his heart sank.
And we were just shocked that a murder would happen in our church, in our sanctuary.
Seattle police are still investigating, saying someone walked into a meeting at the building Wednesday and opened fire, killing a man before leaving. Pastor Drake says a separate group was using the facility for a meeting when the shooting happened and has no connection to the church. That group, Community Passageways, was unable to tell us who the victim is, but says in part, our team, participants, and community are actively working together to begin a journey of collective healing as we mourn for the family and loved ones that were impacted by this tragic event. Pastor Drake's continued goal is to keep uplifting his community, something interim SPD Chief Adrian Diaz mentioned when he was at the scene to respond personally.
In the South Seattle area, we want to make sure that we reduce trauma in regards to shots fired and the shootings that are occurring. So I'm here for that reason.
Did you appreciate that?
We appreciated his presence deeply.
Part of his work, the pastor says, is working alongside police to build bridges.
My wife, bless her heart, she said, we are not going to let this deter us from doing our work, from believing in this community, from helping to lift this community. We will not stop.
Now, at last check with Seattle police, they have identified a suspect. However, no word yet on any arrests. Live in Seattle, I'm Christine Pei, King 5 News.
Christine, thank you.
All right. Community Passageways mentioned there. Coach Dom, his team, they've been guests here on Converge, quite a few times, talked to different people from Community Passageways about the programs there. Man, real sad, and just there's a tragedy all the way around. Derrick, this is unfortunately, this is it's good that you're in this space, but it's unfortunate that you have this job. That we're trying to disrupt gun violence, because clearly that means that there's a gun violence issue here across Seattle and King County. And we're going to talk more about the programs that you guys have, this regional approach. But I know that you and Coach Dom and Community Passageways work closely together. And I don't know, man, what are your thoughts on this? And also the impact is South Seattle keeps being traumatized.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging just the unfortunate reality around this work and the ongoing challenges that we have to face leaning into it. I think, man, there's a couple of things that comes up for me. First, I think it's really unfortunate, right? And I'm deeply saddened. I was actually in a meeting, I think, when I got a text that came through saying what had just happened. And as you can imagine, I was just completely unraveled. I'm like, I was unplugged from that meeting at that moment, and my heart sank. And I think for me, it's realizing events like this don't happen in isolation. It's a part of a culture, and whether that culture is an organization, a community, or a country, we tend to only look at the event and not talk about all of the things beneath the waterline. Like, are there patterns or trends that are happening here? Have we gotten to a point that this thing is now predictable, where we know, what's going to happen and who it's going to be? And then going even a little bit deeper than looking at the event itself and the patterns and trends, but going, what are some of the ideologies that we hold? What are the policies and practices that allows an event like this to continue to happen? And I think that's probably the biggest tragedy around this is we continue to focus on the event rather than going deeper and asking ourselves some really sound questions about what are the things that continue to lead us to this kind of an event happening? What are the ideas that we have in our head as a country? And some of it is deeply rooted that goes beyond COVID-19, right? It's really the first disease that we've had in this country, and that's COVID-19. When Black folks first touched the shores, right? And Africans touched those shores in Virginia. And so it's really needing to address some of the underlying things that continue to creep up and that have a deep historical context. And because we tend to not talk about the history, that below the waterline stuff I'm talking about, we're left with a deep sense of victim blaming, right? Because we have amnesia around how we got here. So it's just an unfortunate circumstance. And I think that the truth is that we've got lots of brilliance and incredible workers in the community who are doing the best that they can with what they have, which most times isn't enough to try to get, these jobs done, under-resourced, understaffed, trying to solve really complex problems that are bigger than just one organization, one institution, one person. It really requires all hands on deck the same way that we've addressed COVID here in King County.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that's so crucial to exactly what you're talking about here goes back to, the fact that we have solutions on the ground and that those solutions need to get scaled up. And so much of that is actually what you guys are approaching with this regional kind of outlook, right? And so talk a little bit more about how you're thinking about tackling those things that you say are a bit under the waters.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're looking at is, to your while holding the tension of how do we create equitable quality and quantity of life, right? Because there's never the long-term investments. If you think about even the vaccine that's created, right? Folks got to take multiple shots for the vaccine. And then even still, we've still had to go back into quarantine different times. And so when we think about disease as a violence and what has to happen and the work that has to happen to quarantine it, to get us to a point of a level of homeostasis where we're healthy, that's critical. And to your point, yeah, we do have strategies that we know can actually solve for this, best practices that are happening literally all over the country where we're watching gun violence in different spaces and pockets go down. And we're looking to employ some of that, whether we're talking about hospital-based strategies, focused deterrence, cognitive behavioral therapy for young people. That's the vaccine that we have. The question is, can we resource it so that the vaccine can actually be, put into place so that folks can get what they need?
Right. And so we're gonna follow back up with you here after headlines and talk more about this regional approach of trying to disrupt this gun violence that continuously impacts our community. And what I told people the other day is there was actually, we know somebody who was there, who was in the church and saw this happen and called us in real time, like know them. You know what I'm saying? We tell people here, being at Converge, is things like this. It's like we report the news, but we're in the community, so we're impacted by the news. Wanting to move along here. There's a story that was in the Seattle Times last night, or yesterday, and Black newspaper delivery driver detained after Pierce County Sheriff claims, then recants threat to life. Now, this story right here out of Pierce County, this is Sheriff Ed Troyer. People might remember Ed Troyer for years. He was the the spokesman or something down there for I think for Tacoma Police Department. So it appears that Ed Troyer saw this black man who, as a newspaper delivery man, I was a paper boy. Seattle Times. He's delivered Seattle Times and the Capitol Hill Times way back in the day. Saw him in his neighborhood and just assumed he was up to no good. Puts in a 911 call, and it's there in the Seattle Times article. It's Louis Camp is one of the writers on it, and he puts in a call saying that he got somebody's there threatening his life, and that's the top priority. There's only one priority that's higher than that in Pierce County Dispatch, and that's when it's called a lahar. That's when the mountain is heating up and it's going to be a big mud flow. 42 different agencies come to respond and this and that. And man, it turns out, I mean, it's really a hoax by the Pierce County Sheriff. But I think, you know, for me, this story goes a bit deeper because this guy was the spokesman for years. He was on TV. Troyer was on TV for years, talking about cases, talking about some everything else. What other stuff did he fudge? You know. I mean, this is the bigger issue here. And so then, even on the 911 call, right? He's contradicting himself when you go in between the 911 call and his official report, because like so the his name is Cedric Altheimer. And Cedric was saying like, yo, man, I was talking to this guy, you know, he was like, man, you know, I'm not racist. He was basically saying he was having a conversation, right? But then he said that he didn't have no conversation. But then on the 911 call, he's like, oh, this guy threatened me. Troyer's all over the place, man. And he put himself in this situation.
He really did. I'm sorry. I mean, this is one of the things, just reading over the report here, for him to say a comment like, I didn't even know he was black until he got out the car. He said to Cedric, well, my wife is black, and then later said he didn't say it. It's so much of the back and forth. And honestly, like, you know, Cedric was like, I never threatened this guy's life. That is what brought out so many different police agencies. When you think about 42, and that's what really heightened, you know, Mr. Altheimer, for him to be like, oh my God, all these cars rushing up on me. He's like, I made sure they could see my hands. This is the kind of stuff we talk about, that there's so much more under the surface, kind of what you were just talking about, Derrick. Yeah. Even on a call like this, there's so much more under the surface that really leads up to these kinds of situations. And it's like one hair trigger away from that becoming a shooting. Somebody actually did come out and have their gun drawn, you know what I mean, on him. And he was just trying to deliver newspapers. I mean, this is insane.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's really, you know, we're seen as a threat and a menace, even just while delivering newspapers, right? Whether it's riding a bike, going for a jog, or sleeping in your own apartment. And the fact that we're viewed as a threat and a menace is something that needs to be decoupled in the collective imagination of America. And when we watch incidents like that, the focus is always on the event. Can we talk about the pattern? Who keeps being on the other end of that, right? It's black and brown bodies, and it's the same story over and over again. Let's talk about the racist ideas that drives the behavior that allows it to happen. And when are we going to start to put accountability measures in place so that people aren't allowed to show up like that? That's where we begin to value life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you for me, it's like you tell somebody, get a job. He's out there working, doing his thing, early morning, you know, doing exactly, a young guy, 24 years old. You know, when is it like, it's situations like this where you just be like, damn, you know? And I don't know, you know, it'd be interesting now to kind of look at Troyer's history, because, you know, all those years there, and then he's elected sheriff. So he's a sheriff down there in Pierce County. And for one, I mean, I don't even know if he's going to be able to last his full term. I mean, one, maybe on the public side, but also two, on the law enforcement side. I'm sure there's a lot of other people in his own agency and other agencies that are just like, dude, you put out this high alert call saying someone threatened to kill you. All these agencies respond. I'm sure there's other agency heads out there, other sheriffs, police, the state troopers responded. Everybody responded. You know what I'm saying? It's credibility as a sheriff and as a leader, I think, is in doubt, man.
Yeah, and something else that you said too, Derrick, that really is so key to this. When we're talking about dealing with the root causes, once again, we can talk about reform all day long, but if police are still running around with those ideologies in their head, those racist ideals, ultimately it's going to result in very similar reactions. That's what we're going to see time and time again. So again, that accountability piece right now is key.
Absolutely. We got to be able to increase accountability and reduce the discretion that allows people to show up in these ways. We complain because we're like, Black Lives Matter, and people spouting that. Until we are stopping people from being able to show up in ways that communicates that Black lives don't matter, then it's going to continue to be shouted from the rooftop, and folks are going to continue to stand up and protest and advocate and, you know, do all of the necessary work that gets us to a point where we can have the type of healing and we can move and our humanity can be honored in the ways that it needs to be.
My goodness.
And I just want to put this, let me see here. Don't have the exact link back up. I want to put this back up here. People can, sorry about that, covering my mouth. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Jim Bruner and Louis Camp, the writers on this article here. This incident happened back in January. You know what I'm saying? And Seattle Times, man, and you know they dug for it. They pulled out should go there and check it out. The whole 911 conversation is there. It's about 4.5 minutes, and you hear Sheriff Troyer on there, you know, and some everything else. But I think that I would agree with you in that we need to look past the outrage, because this is outrageous. Clearly, but we need to look past that. Because a lot of times when you get caught up in the outrage, then it subsides and you just move on. We need to look past the outrage on this and really look, you know, systemically on these deeper issues here. Just like what we're talking about with gun violence, we need to look past our hearts and prayers go out and really try to look for some solutions.
I just got to say, too, that you really hit the nail on the head here to look back at Troyer and look at his accountability over his career. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of people probably might not be thinking of, but you're absolutely right.
If he can be sheriff and call in a hoax, what else has he been doing his whole career? You know, that's at the highest level. Imagine how emboldened Troyer felt to be able to make that call. Right. That emboldenedness doesn't just come from overnight. Right. You know what I'm saying? And you've taken the office as sheriff. That emboldened, it comes from, it would be interesting. It'd be interesting to see Troyer's history, and we're going to stay on top of that. Real quick, here's news for renters across the state of Washington. Governor Inslee extends eviction moratorium through June, announces new vaccine tier. This is from our partners over at the South Seattle Emerald. This was to be expected. Of course, Seattle was out in front in extending the eviction moratorium. And now Governor Inslee as well. And I would just say this, if you can pay your rent, please be paying your rent. Yeah. Like, this ain't a rent vacation, right? Because a lot of what we talked about, what we heard last night, Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition, is that even a lot of businesses, the landlord's not tripping. There's landlords like, yeah, you got people paying, you know, half their rent or this and that. They're going to wait till the moratorium's up and say, hey, we had a legal contract. You breached the contract, and kick them out. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, from the residential level, the business level, if you can pay your rent, please do pay your rent, because there is going to be a day of reckoning around this. And I think what we fear is an eviction tsunami. Also here in King County, don't forget that there is a program that's put on. I think it's the Superior Court has a program where you can start working out a payment plan with your landlord. You can, because the courts want to avoid this tsunami of evictions, and the sheriff don't want to have to throw people's stuff out on the streets. So there are programs there in the King County court system that can help you work out a plan to be able to avoid eviction. But like, man, don't put your life on autopilot on this. Let's please stay proactive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want to be reliant on any systems to make sure that they're bailing you out. I think that there's a lot of measures that need to be looked at during this time. We've been saying it since COVID really struck and stayed on as long as it has, that there needs to be something probably at the federal level, because this is hitting so many different landlords and renters all across the nation, honestly. And so maybe there will be some way, but if you can be paying, you need to be paying.
That's it. All right, we got one more clip here. This is from Justin Carter from CapitolHillSeattle.com. He was actually going to join us live tonight, but he's fishing. And so he sent over a short segment here. We're going to play this. And then when we come back, what we're playing, I think we'll talk about it for a second. Actually, it's our anniversary morning show here. Let me set this up. So Justin, he says a few things here. Then he plays a clip from me and Jake Grabbrot were up on Broadway, and this was July 25th, and it was funky. I mean, like, by that point, by the time we reached the Rainbow crosswalk on Broadway, the tear gas was out, been hit. We got sprayed with the blue. The police coated us in the blue pepper spray. Got hit by the rubber bullets, and so we got beat up, like literally, like the police whipped up on us, and the media as well, not just us. Men like media from around the world got whooped that day. So anyway, we get up there to Broadway, and somebody puts on Marvin Gaye. The Chimichanga lady put on the Marvin Gaye. What's going on? And everybody stopped. And for a minute, the police is over here, the protesters over there, the media people over here, and we're like, "Hey, this is Marvin Gaye." And I told him, I said, "My mama said that Motown can save the world." But anyway, here's Justin Carter talking about that experience.
It's Justin from CapitolHillSeattle.com. I'm sorry not to be there to be part of the fun. I wanted to make sure to say congratulations and sing a little bit of happy birthday to you, and celebrate a lot of the good things that the Morning Update show has done for the city and done for my neighborhood, for Capitol Hill. Those things being there side by side with Converge and with the Morning Update show has been very important to me. And I'm honored to have been able to be part, even just in a little way, of all the great things that you guys have built. I don't want to talk a ton. I want to show everybody a couple clips from how our summer went. Here we go. Take it away, Omari, live from Capitol Hill.
Let's go. Bring it down, man. Motown soul.
In a challenging summer, in a summer with a lot of emotions, in a summer of so many challenges, all the work that Converge has been doing and was doing. And in the middle of all that, also some grace and a little bit of steam being let off. I felt like it was the perfect thing. It was the right thing, and it was a good song to hear in the middle of all that, and to see some life from the media, to feel that kind of stuff from people who are reporting is critical. It's the kind of thing that people need to see.
Man, yeah, and I gotta give people, and it's, we're only touching on the protest lightly today because it's a lot, and I gotta give people even a warning that because we put the link in the comments, and so there's two videos there, and there's one is this one, but the other one, has a video. Let's just get, we can play that, and so it's like a trigger. There's a lot of people, Man, that protest was so.
Yeah. It really was. Well, this is the thing. I think so much of what Converge really experienced was what so many others were on the streets experiencing out there in the CHOP era. It was something that was of its own time, right? And it's like, hey, I saw everybody just staying up all night long to cover this so that people could actually see what was going on, because they wouldn't believe it if they didn't have the cameras out there. Yeah. I mean, you watched some of this, Derrick. I mean, how are you experiencing this live footage that was going on as people were experiencing the police and their aggressiveness when people were just trying to get out there and be peaceful?
Yeah, I think, the first thing I want to say is I want to, salute O and Converge. I'm so grateful to actually have you on the ground in the middle of that chaos. I think just watching that clip, what it did for me was it was this reminder of the experience of like Black and brown folks in this country, even in the middle of utter chaos, where you're literally fighting for your life, you have to still try to find joy, right? I once heard somebody say hopelessness is this idea, or despair is this idea that, right, like your life is going to be the same way tomorrow as it is today. And it's almost like we have to have a mindset that says, man, that's the enemy of justice. So we have to try to find hope and then find joy in the midst of like painful, crazy situations. So just seeing people tear gas with that music on, with just trying to find joy in the middle of pain. That's the story, right, that we grapple with regularly.
I think like for me and Jake and Eric, a few other people that were out there, was like we weren't gonna let, no matter what we went through, we weren't gonna let it change us. We weren't gonna let it make us be somebody who we not. We weren't gonna, let that experience turn us to hate and let it, And I think that if you go back through the protests, you find all these moments kind of like that, where it's like, man, it's horrible. And then we gotta catch our breath and be like, man, I hope the Mariners don't disappoint us this season. you know what I'm saying? Where because you can't, it's too easy. It's too easy to buy into it. It's too easy to buy into rage, and it's easy to buy into hate, man. It's easy, and once you go down that hole, I know too many people who never come back, and that's something that's impacting our young people out here in the streets.
Yes.
They bought into it. They don't know how to pull back, and it was just important to stay above the fray. You know what I'm saying? And even be able to laugh at some situations, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're digging deep and you're talking about it from a perspective of, even what we just were talking about with the young people, man. I mean, when you're talking about really giving yourself a chance, like that brother said in that clip yesterday, it is so key because ultimately so many of our people are stuck there and it is difficult. So I'm so glad, that you found a way to stay on your dean, even in the midst of the chaos. That's why people was really gravitating to it, because it wasn't that, as people were saying, well, man, you should be upset with the police. Look at what they did to you. You kept being like, man, nah, man, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. And that, I think, is the resilience that allowed you to continue to cover the protest day after day. Without it, man, it'd been easy to just be like, man, nah, I'm not dealing with that. That's getting me to a place I don't even want to be. But really, that dedication is what really people gravitated to, man, and what pulled people in.
Thank you. We're going to take a state break, and when we come back, Derrick Wheeler-Smith is going to tell us all about King County Public Health's Zero Youth Detention program. It's a model that they actually have to reduce gun violence throughout King County. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
The Seattle Association of Black Journalists presents the Morning Update Show 1-year anniversary special this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. Join the Converge Media family as we broadcast live from the State Hotel in downtown Seattle, and we take a look back at the last 12 months of the Morning Update Show and a glance towards the future. This is a night you won't want to miss and definitely won't forget, as we're also joined by Julia Jesse, Basa Gordon, Marcus Harrison Green, Jake Gravbrot, Be Unique, Dre's, Eric Calligraphy, Bobby Stills, Mike Davis, Carlos Imani, Willard Jimerson, G-Prez Aspie, DJ Topspin, and more. Woo! So save the date this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. across all Converge media platforms.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Nice break right there. Break up there, man. Seattle's owned by Dre's. Dre's is actually going to be joining us tonight at 7 o'clock, talking about that track. Everybody loves that track, man. That's the Converge track right there. So as you guys have been watching, Derrick Wheeler-Smith has already been in the house with us from the beginning of the show. Now we want to turn the focus, man, and we've been talking about this for the last 3 days, and we kind of made a programming decision here because it's like, man, this is our anniversary week. This is up and celebration. It's whatever, but even before the Morning Update Show, and which we launched around COVID, and of course people know Converge a lot around the protest, we were creating content to try to highlight, like to do our part. We're media people. How can media work to disrupt gun violence? And it was like 2 years ago, we hooked up with Willard Jimerson Jr. on Good Game Alert to just try to do our part through media and be credible messengers ourselves, to do that part. And so when we came into this celebration week and really kind of balance it, it's like although we're celebrating 1 year on air, then we become complicit with everybody else who treats this pandemic of gun violence like a silent pandemic. And so we thought that it was important these last 3 days of this week that even though we're uplifting our accomplishments here, that we give space and opportunity for this work that you guys are doing at Zero Youth Detention to inform the public as to what's going on, so people can get a better understanding and support your efforts.
Yeah, well, thank you for naming that. I would be remiss if somehow I get off of here and don't say happy birthday to Converge, So happy birthday. Man, it's y'all's anniversary. Cue Tony. Do you know what today is? So salute to y'all. Man, this is really a deep story, man, that just centers around a complex conversation that we don't want to have around violence. A third of the young people that are locked up, man, right now over on East Alder are in there for violent offenses that have something to do with a gun. And so as we have this broad conversation around the work of Zero Youth Detention, which I think in some ways has, it's a title that I think has some undertones that could be inherently racist, because it's this idea of like, what do we need to do to stop Black and brown children from going to jail versus how are we creating the conditions that sets up young people to be happy, hopeful, healthy, safe, and thriving. And that if we do that, then you won't have to lock up kids because you're setting them up based on what you're doing in their environment to be successful. And so that has really intentionally been the focus. And I don't think we can even just make it about the success of Zero Youth Detention and this idea that the county execs have 2025, we're going to shut down the CFJC. Well, shutting down the CFJC, is that a success if we do that by 2025?
And you can tell people what the CFJC is.
So the Children's Family and Justice Center, right, which was built to replace the old facility that was over there. There was a large movement, the No New Youth Jail movement. The community coalesced. There was a large movement across this country to decarcerate young people. And that is really what created and applied the kind of pressure. I know sometimes the community maybe doesn't feel like it gets acknowledged or gets the kudos that it deserves, but we got to continue to apply that kind of pressure because it results in getting the kind of wins that we want to get. But closing that in 2025, is that really a win? I feel like that's kind of like abolishing slavery when they said it was abolished. Oh, Black folks are free. Free to go where? Free to be who? Free to do what? So unless you transform the conditions, you're just setting kids up to be unsuccessful. So realizing that violence is something that we really have to begin to address, we believe that in order to get to this idea of zero, we see violence as a go first strategy, right? We're saying this is the fastest way that our kids are dying. I talked about those patterns or trends. There are predictable mortality rates for our kids. And your literal zip code is a larger predictor than your DNA of your mortality rate of how long you're going to live. That's not an accident. That's a social construct. We got to begin to unpack that and understand that. So we do have strategies, right, that I mentioned, from cognitive behavioral therapy to critical incident response, hospital-based interventions, all of these overlapping strategies. And what we're saying is you can't solve these disparities with one institution, with one organization, with one person. We have to recognize our interdependence across these different domains. Homelessness can't be working by themselves. Police can't be working by themselves. And let me even say something in relationship to the police, right? I'm not anti-police. What I am is anti-harm being caused to people, right, in our community. And I think that there's a role that police play in stopping crime. I just don't think we need to center the police in a conversation that is about how we're going to disrupt violence. And so that's why we're employing these kinds of strategies that sets up our community to be healthy. We just need to have them resourced and need to be able to empower the folks that are in space and doing the good work, the credible messengers, right, who have these relationships and who are leading our young people into spaces that allows them to be healthy and thriving. If we don't do that, then what good is it to have organizations that do good work with kids, but then send them back into the same environment that made them sick in the first place? So what we're saying is, let's have the courage to build a sustainable plan and not just fund what we can do to stop kids from dying tonight. This needs to be bigger than an elected official, a department, you know what I'm saying, a director. How do we build a sustainable plan so that we're not having the same conversation in another decade?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what you're saying is so resonating with me, because when we talk about grassroots approaches, oftentimes you have to look at it in this kind of way, looking at how all of the intersections come together. I always talk about it as pieces to one large puzzle, right? And really understanding that, Nikita was just here saying, very similar to what you're saying here, is that when we change the material conditions of our people, when we change the ways that we actually care for people as a holistic approach, we will decrease the need for these kinds of systems. How is it looking in terms of bringing in some of those other sectors that you talked about when you're talking about homelessness over here, affordable housing, police? How does that actually work, and how are you putting that into practice?
Yeah, so one of the things we really spent the last year doing has been organizing the system itself. How do we begin to look at data completely differently? How do we talk about historical data, quantitative and qualitative data? How do we spend more time looking in the mirror and less time looking out the window, right? And putting the onus and responsibility on community. So we've been meeting and aligning and having conversations and looking at how we can look at a continuum across this entire pipeline. Where are the investments going? What's working? What's not working? How do we then reallocate resources towards what's working? And now that we've gotten some of this work that's happened, where we've gotten 20 plus departments across both the county and city, we're looking at going, how do we engage community in a way that's completely different from historically what has been done, right? And so we're looking at these multidisciplinary work groups with categories like education, workforce development, juvenile justice, right? There's a work of like, what does the repurposing of the CFJC look like? What do we do with our young people who are there? What do we do with young people who do need to be quarantined for a period of time for public safety reasons? But what does rehabilitation really look like in those spaces? And what does the recovery of healing and restoration look like? And so, yeah, that is this ongoing journey. And it does take all hands collectively working together. It's an ecosystem, and we all have a role to play within that ecosystem.
Let me ask you this. Is it a lot of times it seems like there's an either or conversation, and it's, either we're focused here on what's happening today right now with like we just saw down there on Rainier, or we talk about this future that people aspire towards, where like you said, conditions are met to where people aren't making decisions that would lead them to be incarcerated. I think that one of the groups that is overlooked, though, when we have these conversations, and a lot of the times in comments and everything else, is a lot of our elderly population that live still in the CD, or the South End, or Skyway, and I mean they really feel impacted today, and I mean they're looking for something today, and so then people are like, well, you know what, we don't want to call the police. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, well, what are we going to do today to stop the person who's just randomly shooting down my block, or, a homicide across the street, or I can't go to the park over there because someone shot 70 bullets in there and everything else. And so I'm assuming that this is part of your regional approach, is like, okay, well, man, here's our short term right now. How do we identify this? Here's our long term in creating conditions where people aren't, making these life decisions. Can you speak some to that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that makes this important is, as I was mentioning, is it's the ecosystem. And so it's everybody understanding their part and their role. And there is literally a role for everybody. One of the things that's going to happen, and I think this is why it's important for people really to tune in on Sunday night, because the people that are going to be in space aren't necessarily showing up. While they do have a level of subject matter expertise, we're in an incredibly adaptive space. So we're collectively all learning together and going, hey, man, my voice matters and is valid, but my perspective is partial. So I need to know, what does Trey have to say and what is right? And collectively, as we start to build, our ingenuity and creativity begins to lead us on this continued path of liberation. So there's a role for the faith-based folks, and there's a role for community watch captains, and there's a role for what do we need to do to make these kinds of shifts. And a lot of these solutions are going to be talked about on Sunday night. We don't want to waste time analyzing the problem. We're going to spend Sunday really talking about, to your point, what are the solutions and things that we can get to?
Right. And real quick, I know Trey had one more question, and then we got to end the segment, but I wanted to put this up on the screen. This is this Sunday, the Regional Community Safety Town Hall, this Sunday, 5 o'clock, 5 to 7, anywhere where you're watching the morning update show. you can find this regional community safety town hall. Trey?
Yeah, for me, I love the approach, and I loved your question, because you're so right. Like, the short term is needed now, as we see gun violence is not slowing down. What is some of the things that you've been able to witness from your perspective and your purview, being on the inside, that really gives you the amount of hope that's needed to kind of continue to push for these newer, innovative solutions that are really bringing in so many different sectors in the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of things. I think one of the things that gives me hope, honestly, is the relentless pursuit of a generation of young people who literally went to the streets to continue to create the kind of groundswell that's applying the kind of pressure that has us in this space. And so while COVID-19 has been such an interrupter for our lives, it's also been an accelerator. We're watching stuff happen that would have taken another 20, 30, 40, 50 years happen just like that. And so one of the things that gives me hope is an aspiring generation that's moving completely different in terms of just how they're pulling up relentlessly. And watching young people's lives in the middle of this chaos, Trey, literally be transformed. Watching young people who are putting the guns down, right? And whose lives are being transformed and whose lives are being changed and are being taught that they can move in a completely different way and are on the path to recovery, because that's an ongoing journey. I think there's this conversation around compounded trauma that we don't have, even around what just the violence that continues to happen in our community. And the fact that even through our epigenetics, we carry trauma in our genes from our ancestors. And so the unattended nervous system of Black folks is also a whole nother conversation that's deeply connected to public health, which is why they declared it a public health crisis, right? Racism itself. So these are the kinds of things that we got to be addressing, and these are the strategies that we're going to be talking about putting into place.
Man, that just warmed my heart, almost brought me to tears, because I love the visual of thinking about young folks putting the guns down and picking up newer solutions, believing in themselves. That is beautiful.
All right, Derrick Wheeler-Smith, you're going to hang with us for the last segment, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Derrick Wheeler-Smith was talking about right here. This is this Sunday. We'll put it up here one more time. You see that slide over there? Oh, I got it. Here we go. Regional Community Safety Town Hall. That is this Sunday, 5 p.m., wherever you're watching the Morning Update show. Can we take a merch break real quick? We're going to take a merch break. When we come back, one more segment here for the morning edition of the anniversary of the Morning Update show. It's going to be lit tonight.
You know it.
7 p.m. We'll be right back.
Here I can buy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Do we got merch for you to buy?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Let's go.
You know what I'm saying? We'll even give you that Franklin Quaker discount.
Okay. Yeah. That probably doesn't amount to much coming from the Bulldog.
All right. So it's still Feel Good Friday, and we want to stick with that. There's been some heavy topics today, but like I said, people have been far too silent for too long about this other pandemic that's impacting us here in Seattle, King County, but also nationally. And so I'm glad that over the last 3 days, we've been able to share space with Willard Jimerson Jr., Buki Gates, and Derrick Wheeler-Smith. But in keeping the tradition of Feel Good Friday and looking back on the last 12 months, I thought that I would play this clip here from last year. I remember me and you, we saw this and we're blown away. This is Marcus and Jessica Trufant, who have their podcast, Truly Unruly, which you can see right here on Converge every Sunday at 8 p.m. And we asked the Trufants, who have 5 kids, by the way, what's Black love all about?
Like Black love, it's a movement. We're here to showcase that Black love is here. It's beautiful. It's happy. It's not perfect, but that's our goal. Black love is everything. And we just want to encourage it, inspire it, and showcase it, really.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just give people the opportunity to see it in real time. you see stuff on social media, or you may know me from sports and stuff like that, but we are regular people doing normal family things with kids, the ups and downs, and you can get through it. And you gotta enjoy the ride, and it all starts with love. You gotta have that foundation, and we just trying to showcase the normalness of our everyday.
Right, and we're Black.
There it is. And so
I love that. And we're Black.
Yeah, we're going to be looking back at the last year, a lot of clips like that, over the last 12 months. But man, the True Fonts were awesome.
I mean, come on, man. Their energy is on point. Yes. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, and you got to love how they work together and balance each other out. Marcus is real chill. Jessica's like, oh, what's up? You know what I mean? The energy is great. And, shout out to them for really being able to be a true example of Black love. We know it's tough, but I love seeing it in practice.
Very nice, feel good Friday. Trey Holiday, until 7 p.m. Do you have any last words for our audience?
I gotta say this in the spirit of, having Willard and Buki and Derrick on this week. You guys see yourself as a part of the solution. You've heard me say it before, but I think it is ever more clear with Derrick's message today and what the other two brothers were able to share throughout the week. It is important that we all find ourselves as a part of the solution so that we can create these norms that we need when we think about treating the whole person. Be hard.
All right. If you haven't done so yet, then you tripping. You need to go ahead and set the reminder on your YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're watching us. Tonight is 7 p.m. We got a special night lined up for. I hope we can pull it off. People know Converge is the little engine they could. We the lightweights fighting above our weight class in the ring full of heavyweights. So we got a big ambitious plan for tonight. We'll see if we're gonna happen, but we gonna give it our all. We gonna give it our all and see what happens as we broadcast live from the State Hotel. And actually, I think me and Trey will be. We might switch up during the night though. But we're gonna be here in this studio in Pioneer Square, and also like 5 blocks up at the State Hotel. And we're broadcasting live to you as we celebrate our last 12 months on air. But most importantly, as we give thanks to you. Thanks to you, our viewers, our supporters. Man, you guys are the reason that we're on air. I'll say this, is that I did an interview this morning with mynorthwest.com. And they were like, man, what are you most proud of over the last year? I said that I'm proud of the fact that our neighborhood and our community is proud of us. Because you remember when we started this show, we said, man, we just want to do something that's going to make Big Mama and them proud. That, our aunts and our uncles and everybody would come out and be like, man, that's our people. And, we say that in a small kind of neighborhood way, as in like Central, but we say that as in an us way. And so like our community in Des Moines and Berrien and Covington and Skyway and the South End, and the amount of just love and care that we get from community is like, that's the biggest thing that I'm proud of. Yeah. It's like, I think it's mission accomplished and we got to keep pushing, but our people is proud of us, man.
Yeah, that's exactly what I have echoed in my sentiments. I think the proudest thing for me is exactly what you described. When folks are on the street and they say, man, Trey, you and O are doing it, man. Y'all killing it. That's what it is, man. That's why we did this.
People used to ask me, they was like, man, were you nervous when you go down there to the city hall or you talk to the mayor, city council? No. I'm nervous when I go to 23rd Union. Right. I go and see my people. You know what I'm saying? I'm not worried about these people downtown. I'm worried about the neighborhood. I tell people, these people say this and that on Twitter. Them people on Twitter don't live in the CD. Right. They don't live in the South End. They don't, you know what I'm saying? That's our people. But in our broader audience as well. We got people watching us all over the world, literally. But until tonight, at 7 p.m. and we'll see you all there. As usual, I want to remind you, go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity until tonight at 7 p.m. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty.
song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day.